It's the second round of a professional Counter-Strike game, and I have one question for you. Who won the pistol? I think some of you know where I'm going with this, but the fact that you can't answer this question immediately upon glancing at the buys already illustrates the issue. But to make matters worse, it was the CTs who won this pistol round. OG won the pistol, and yet they get no premium rifles, while Vitality get 3 AKs. Strap yourselves in, folks, get yourselves comfortable, because I'm about to rant about why I think the economy is the biggest issue in pro Counter-Strike today. Oi oi, it's your boy Hawka, and I may have been away for a while, but I'm back with a bang to talk about the economy. There's been a lot of chatter about the economy recently, and so I figured I'd throw in my 2 cents and talk about what I think the biggest issue with the economy is. And that's the T-side force buys after losing the pistol, but getting the bomb planted. Let's take a look at that first, especially egregious example of a second round force buy being too damn strong. This one comes from Vitality versus OG, and Vitality get themselves onto the A site quickly and get a pretty quick bomb plant in this round. Then OG do a really good job on the retake, double nading this player towards the back of the site, and then starting to land a bunch of shots before getting the smoke on the bomb and getting the defuse in the midst of all the chaos. The problem for OG is that they lose all their players after getting the defuse, so Vitality have already saved 2 sets of Kevlar, and with the bomb plant as well, they're in for a tough time against what is about to be a very strong buy. Pausing at the start of this second round, there are already many things to consider. So firstly, Vitality have saved a couple of players with Kevlar here, and as long as they haven't taken damage, that means they only need to spend $350 to get the helmet. This means for both Shox and RPK, if they want to buy an AK with head armor here, they can do so easily. In fact, RPK could even buy some nades alongside his AK. Furthermore, just in general, the entire Vitality team have enough money to buy AKs, so they could drop them for teammates, they could make sure they can get as many AKs as possible into this round, and there are even other options like getting the Galil, which is now only $1,800 and is pretty damn strong. You can get a Mac 10 in there or a Deeg, which are all powerful options. Meanwhile, over on the OG side of things, you look at their money and it's much more hazy. OG are very aware they're likely going up against a force buy in this round, but they can't be entirely sure what they're going up against. They might be going up against Galils, where you'd want to have a helmet so you don't just get one-shotted. The same can be said when you're going against a Mac 10 or a Tech 9, for example. So OG probably have to play it safe here and get a helmet with any of their rifles. That's already $1,000 that every player has to spend. Then when you take into account the fact that most players play with the M4A4, which costs $3,100, it's only Valder who could afford an M4A4 and Kevlar and helmet, and that would be at the cost of having no nades, which the CTs are normally going to want in this sort of round where you don't know if you're going up against a rush. It's basically only the players who got kills in the pistol round and therefore got some extra money that could even think about buying an M4 on the CT side, whereas most of the players have to go for weaker weapons, and the FAMAS, in my opinion, is nowhere near as good as the Galil over on the T side. You can go for SMGs or Scouts, but those are obviously much more one-dimensional and much more niche than an AK, which can be used anywhere. And again, the CTs probably want to get some nades and want to get some kits in play in this round to be 100% secure. So that's a lot more money that needs to be spent. And so all of those factors lead to this buy, where Vitality have better rifles, and that's without even talking about how the round itself actually plays out. Now, the obvious weakness of this buy from Vitality is the utility is lacking. But on a map like Mirage, on the T side, you don't really need nades to force fights. You can pick your spots, you can pick where your duels are going to be taken, and you can oftentimes open up rounds just off individual play rather than relying on utility. And that's basically what ends up happening in this round. Vitality only need to use their one smoke on window to be able to start splitting B. They wait out the early nades that they know that OG are likely to have in this round with their buy. And even though OG have 3 players stacked in this bomb site, because of their weaker weapons, they end up losing the initial fights, and that makes them unable to really establish crossfires that would be required to win this round. And this is another real issue in this second round, is that the Ts are already going to have the strength in numbers. So if you give them the numbers advantage as well as the weaponry advantage in the second round, after they lost the pistol, I don't know what the CTs are meant to do here. If you have an M4 or a premium rifle, it's so much easier to win that first fight and then to be able to delay the opponents and buy more time for a rotation. But when you have a FAMAS or a weaker weapon, everything's just going to take a bit longer, and it makes it so much more difficult to delay these rounds and actually allow the rotates to come into play. And then to make matters worse, this reverberates throughout the entire half. In round 3, OG now only have one saved FAMAS and upgraded pistols on some of their players. And if they lose this round, all they can do is save again and allow the Ts to build up even more money. I will concede that that was quite an exaggerated example, where the Ts were able to save some Kevlar, which helped them buy even more and get mostly AKs in the second round. But let's go through another example, and I'm sorry OG fans, you might want to look away, because it's you getting screwed over again here. In this round, there's a solid A take from Vitality to begin with, where they trade into a 3v3 and are able to get the bomb down, but they end up planting on the bank side of the site, and as the round plays out, you're going to see that this ends up costing them. Shox gets left in a 1v2, he's unable to deny the defuse behind the back of this box, and so you'd think that OG would be rewarded for their heads-up play of being able to prioritize the objective and win the round, right? Well, this time round, the buy in the second round ends up being fairly even. Both teams end up getting 2 premium rifles each, although Alexi B has to go without a helmet. But the big difference is that OG have more nades across the board, they have better weapons on 2 of their players, and they don't have to have players without Kevlar, which is something Vitality had to do to get the AKs into this round. This is where some of the other mechanics come into play though, as once again ZywOo wins an early fight with the AK thanks to the one-shot headshot capability. Then another advantage for the Ts is that Apex is able to pick up this AK from his dead teammate. This is effectively like having to fight 3 AKs now as he picks this up. And even though he doesn't put it to use, once again, ZywOo's there to trade his teammate. And then Masuta's able to pick up this Galil at the end here as well. And look, this isn't the best scenario for Masuta to be in, considering he doesn't have Kevlar, but every single Vitality player got the opportunity to pick up a gun from their teammates' bodies in this round. And this is another example of the T side having an advantage, where they have the ability to stick together in this round, and generally, as long as you can just trade it out, you're going to be able to pick up those guns, and you're going to be able to use them more than once. Meanwhile, this is something the CTs don't really have the same ability to accomplish. OG lost one of their M4s in these early trades in this round, and they don't want to take the risk of peeking angles, of giving away fights, so they just have to concede that even though they've got the man advantage from these trades, they can't get their better rifle back, and they're just going to have to play with the FAMAS and the Scout. And at the end here, I'm going to be honest with you, this isn't exactly an example of the second round forcebuy being a big issue, because not everyone's going to have ZywOo on their team, but it does show the potential of the AK to just win fights, and ZywOo does that throughout this round. He ends up getting the ace. Obviously he gets set up for some favorable fights for him, but it still just goes to show the playmaking potential of a single AK, and so having multiple AKs in the second round is so strong. This has gotten so bad to the point where I almost wonder whether some teams are doing this on purpose in the second round. This one comes from Heroic against Hellraisers, and in case you haven't been keeping up, my man Big Brain Hunden is now the coach over at Heroic, always been a big fan of him, and in this round, Heroic run a pretty quick A play with a couple of smokes. These sorts of plays have become much more common, where you just put a couple of smokes onto the site, and your main focus is just making sure you get the bomb down at the very least, and Heroic do that very successfully at the start here. Hellraisers, however, are able to fight their way back into it with a couple of kills. They get on the bomb for the smoke defuse, and then it almost feels like Heroic let them defuse the bomb. They don't fight too aggressively. I'm not sure if they just weren't expecting the stick to come in, but they end up getting a bunch of kills after the bomb gets defused, and as we saw earlier, this kind of favors the Ts to some extent. As expected, both teams end up buying into this next round, and Hellraisers do focus a little bit more on making sure they get 4 M4s. Wow, that was a lot of rhymes. While over on the Heroic side of things, they're able to get 3 AKs. And again, the nades aren't great on either team, but all in all, the buys are fairly similar. And one of the reasons why I wonder whether Heroic did this on purpose is because on a map like Train, if you fall behind on your CT economy early, it can be very difficult to get those double AWPs out, to get all those nades through, which you normally kind of need on the CT side of Train. And just in general, if the Ts can get a few easier rounds to begin the half, it can make such a huge difference on Train to help you actually win the game. Heroic end up deciding to play this round pretty slowly, which I think is a fairly good decision. They dropped one of Hellraiser's M4's earlier Ivy, so they know they can just hold on to that position and take away one of the premium rifles that Hellraisers have. And one of the other points we were mentioning earlier is that the CTs often struggle to get full utility into this round. So by playing slow, you make it much less likely that the CTs are going to have nades, which can be costly against you in the late round. And it also just gives the AKs even more of an ability to be able to take individual fights and to be dropped in a position where it can probably be recovered. And at the end here, they end up hitting the B site, winning the round, and put themselves in a really good position to be able to run away with the early part of this second half. This final point at the end here is arguably the most important out of the whole video, and it's the economic impact of that second round forcebuy. So let's recap this Vitality versus OG second half. OG end up winning the pistol round by the defuse. Then in the second round, Vitality have that really strong forcebuy, where that round's probably a 50-50 for me in terms of which team is going to win it. But if the CTs lose, they get completely screwed economically, while the Ts are at least only going to have to save once before being able to buy again. In round 3, OG low buy and stack the wrong site, so that's back-to-back rounds where Vitality get to save with 5 players, which helps build their money. In round 4, OG stack the right site with their low buy and end up getting 3 kills because of it. And all of that leads to this position in round 5, where OG finally get their first buy together, but they're now 12-7 behind, and Vitality have been able to stack up so much money that OG at this point have little room for error. And all of this comes from the fact that OG won the pistol round and ended up losing the follow-up, which is almost worse than losing the pistol round in and of itself, because you go down a rung on that losing bonus, you go back down to the lowest loss bonus possible, and it just screws you over for the entire rest of the half. It constantly felt like OG were on the back foot. It constantly felt like OG couldn't afford to make any more mistakes or they were going to be screwed. And this is basically what ends up happening. OG win 2 rifle rounds fairly convincingly, but then Vitality only need to win 1 rifle round back to reset them. And this is what OG's money looks like. They end up being completely screwed, and it just comes back to the feeling that that second round forcebuy is pretty likely to succeed, and that when it does succeed, it screws over the CT's economy significantly. Anyway, that's probably enough ranting for one day, so let me know in the comments if you guys agree with me. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.